unashamedly human with a diagnosis that is only a part of who I am.
It's Tuesdays with Tawana. Let's get it. You ready? Let's go. Hey, hey, hey. What's good, beloveds? It's Tuesdays with Tawana. What's going on? What's going on? Glad to be back live. Glad to be back live. Glad to be back live. Sometimes, yeah, I my schedule just doesn't allow me to go live, and I gotta hit y'all with a recording real quick. So, yeah, what's good? Happy Tuesday to everybody. Finding as much joy as we can amid the ills that are happening in our country and in this world. Today, Tuesdays with Tawana, we are going to focus on silent battles, and I would really love your input and your feedback on this because this is an area, not that I struggle with it, but I grapple with it a bit, because in order for us to deal with these disparaging numbers as it relates to Black women, Black beloveds, BIPOC communities, we got to talk about it, and we got to galvanize, or we have an opportunity to galvanize and make things happen and to make a change. So, yeah, we're going to talk a bit about silent battles, but first, let's talk about some current events for a minute. Yeah, let's do that. I had an opportunity this last week to attend a screening for This Is Where I Learned Not to Sleep. You can go on to thisiswherefilm.com to actually see the 38-minute documentary, centering and focusing on Mark Wynn, who is an amazing human being, and directed by beloveds that I know and love, particularly my dear friend Kirsten Kelly. So had a chance to do the screening and then was invited to do some talk back with it. So domestic violence and breast cancer awareness month are both, it's a very busy time for me, and I choose to be busy during this time because there are times where um, people choose not to talk about it out loud, cannot talk about it out loud. And I want to be that middle ground where I am able to share not only my experience, but also share information or be an encouraging voice and soul to insert into this community building narrative. I want us to be rooted in joy and the journey of healing and not necessarily stay stuck in despair and fear. Yes, we are going to feel all the feels as we normally do. And I don't want us to be stuck there. So it is my hope that during this podcast that we are truly building community one womanist episode at a time. A womanist, I identify as a womanist because I'm a Black woman and I center Black women's experiences, not only for my liberation, but for the liberation of all. So I share my story, talk about things, and make things happen. Hey, Tony, I'm so glad you made it. Grateful you made it. Yeah, I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. So it is sort of like second nature for someone to say, "Oh, it is 2 o'clock on Tuesday. I gotta catch Tuesdays with Tawana," because it's something about catching it live than it is catching it on the recording. So, those who are joining for the first time, whether you're listening live or you're going to listen to the recording later on any of your various podcast platforms, on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. It's all over the place. You can take a listen, throw something in the comments. I do pay attention to comments on all platforms so that we can have a dialogue about this. I don't entertain negativity and BS, so don't even bother because I'll then delete you and block you. Okay, so let's talk about some current events for a moment. One, we're what, 3 weeks out from the historic election. And we are 3 weeks out from the election. Please vote. Please, please, please vote. Don't sit this one out. Don't think that your vote doesn't count. Hey, Jules. Yes, listening to the live. Yes, it does feel like we're having a conversation. That's why I love it when I come on live. Thank you so much. Yeah, you gotta vote. Just please don't sit this one out. We've heard from the last election that people kind of sat back and focused on statistics and said, "Oh, I don't need to vote. My vote doesn't matter anyway." And as we saw, it does matter. Yeah, we can talk about the Electoral College and it just needs to be banished. That's for a different time and a different place and space. It should be one vote, the popular vote, and that's it. Yes, Jules, it is too risky to sit back in this election. So I know we're not going to get too much into politics because I really want to talk about silent battles with breast cancer and domestic violence. But I will say this, the two-party system, many things just weren't designed for humanity, period, right? Whether it's this Black beloved or our indigenous beloveds or, women, the certain things just were not designed for us to be successful, period, or to see our humanity, period. Tanisha says, please vote if for no other reason than not voting relinquishes your right to a complaint. Sometimes you want to hear your mouth. We sometimes want to hear your mouth if you don't vote, but moving on. Absolutely. Don't complain about the outcome if you don't vote. And voting is one tool in your wheelhouse, right? So, we get to this point where we're right before the election and we start talking about third party. We start talking about one issue voters. We start talking about all these things as a distraction. What we have an opportunity to talk about is, don't want to hear your mouth if you don't vote. What we do have an opportunity to talk about is all of the other things that fall under our rights to demand a level of humanity and human rights. Calling your local council person, representative, mayor, senator, governor, throughout the 4 years, not waiting until this moment to start pushing and saying, oh, well, this party didn't do this, so I'm not voting at all on this one issue. And that one issue, not to diminish that one issue, because the wars that are going on is a big issue. And we do need to take a stand. And we do need to have an embargo on sending any money and any weapons. And we do need to call for a ceasefire, period. I got that out. Okay. Now, does that mean that I don't vote at all? Because there are so many other issues that we must tend to and that we must fight for that does not fall under this silent battle that we're going to talk about. This is our current events portion, right? So it's so important that if you are eligible to vote, please go out and vote. Vote for people over politics. Vote for the saving of this broken democracy as it is. It will not exist if you don't vote accordingly. If there were interviews I was watching during, not, I don't want to call it research, but just kind of gathering information about the other party that wants to destroy democracy, the Republicans that want to destroy democracy, or just MAGA. It may not be all of the R's, but when asked what is an immigrant, what is a migrant, what is socialism, and no one can answer that question, because what I have come to learn that people don't really care about what this person does or has to say. They either want to vote politics, their party, over people, or they just want to hold on to this white ideology, their whiteness. And you don't have to be white to have a white ideology, and just hold on to that by any means necessary, not realizing that it is going to destroy what we know of any type of freedom. Oh gosh. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. My phone. Yeah. Anyway, technology. So anyway, enough of that. I need you to go and vote. I need you to speak up and speak out against what is going on that is against humanity, whether it's women's rights, reproductive rights, voting rights, racial justice, speaking out against the wars, the treatment of our beloved siblings who are immigrants or migrants. No one is illegal. We are not the thing that we do, right? Our essence is defined by who we are and not necessarily what we do. Well, so that brings me to this silent battle that I want us to talk about. And I want to talk about it in two different segments, because the silent battle in domestic violence looks different than the silent battle with breast cancer. So most recently, for whatever reason, death has been knocking on a lot of doors. A lot of doors. Whether it's family members, celebrities, and everyone in between. And they seem to get younger. It's the reason for the cause of their death tends to be silent or secret, if you will. And my concern is, yes, people are nosy. And people just want to know the business, and they want to be able to say, oh, so-and-so died because they had an overdose or whatever. I knew they want, I get it. I get why people at times live in this silent battle because they can't trust community to hold space for them. They can't trust community, even family, to hold space for them. So if I am diagnosed with breast cancer, there are times when I don't want to talk about it because people are going to ask me 50 million questions instead of standing with me and just, creating space for me to feel all the feels. They want to judge. They want to say, well, why are you doing chemo? Why you don't want to do a holistic route? Or why are you taking this med? Or why are you going to this doctor? And that's not what the person needs to hear at that time. The person doesn't need to be asked more questions. They're already getting 50 million questions from their team of doctors. So what would be the best thing is to say, I'm standing with you. You need anything, I'm here for you. Help me to understand how to best help you. So if knowing about your diagnosis is going to help you, let me know so I know what things to do, what to say, and what not to say. And there are some that choose this silent battle, whether it's due to shame or fear or judgment. And oftentimes that silent battle does not work to our advantage because we need to use our energy for healing and for life-giving modalities versus working so hard to keep something a secret. And some things are just private. Some in this day of social media, it seems like when you go to the bathroom, people want to post about it. Like there are some things that should remain private. There's a difference between private and being secretive or silent out of fear. It's the intention behind it. So if it's private, I still have my village. If it's private, I still have my people standing with me, helping me make decisions. If it's private, I get to choose who I have in my circles. When it is a secret or when it's in silence and we don't tell anybody, that puts so much stress and strain on our bodies and it stops us from healing and it allows that cancer to attack because now we have made ourselves vulnerable. So I do what I do to share my story in the hopes that someone who is not sharing their story publicly will be able to get something from this and to really define what healing looks like for them and what they need. And it may not look like my healing journey. I didn't know my healing journey was going to be so out loud and out there. I didn't know that until it happened, until I had the language, until people were listening and people were, calling and texting and saying thank you. And I've learned this and I've looked into that. It's not for my self-aggrandizement. I am because you are. So I do what I do so that we can live and survive and reduce these disparaging, disproportionate numbers where we are dying because of medical racism. Because when people walk into the doctor's office, they don't say anything because the doctor doesn't even look them in the eye or call them by their name or call them rightfully by their name or give them choices or, just make assumptions that you understand what I'm saying. So if I am not seen, I don't blame people for not wanting to take the risk to put themselves out there for only to be degraded or demeaned or dehumanized. So I do what I do to bring awareness, to raise awareness, to put it out there that we are more than our diagnosis. We are not defined by our diagnosis. What we are defined by is who we are, and that's created in the image and likeness of God. We are divine. We are co-creators, and we get to define what healing looks like. On the other hand, when we talk about domestic violence and the silent battles, those battles are different and the silence is different. The silence might be because one is trying to save their life. The silence might be if I tell anyone, they are not going to believe me, and the outcome is going to be detrimental to my life. If I say something back to my perpetrator or abuser or my intimate partner who is violent, then I may end up gravely harmed. So I have to intentionally be silent in order to save my life and to save my family and my children and people around me and my friends. So now I have to remove myself from that situation so that I can stay in this silent bubble and try to stay as safe as possible. That's what battling looks like to them. So I then come in, and it is a risk. I've said this plenty of times before, that it is a risk for me to come on here and to talk about domestic violence. I don't know where my partner, ex-partner is. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what state of mind he's in. I don't know if he's alive, but I tell my story because it is a part of my narrative. Storytelling is powerful, and I am hoping that I can give someone something, some glimmer of hope to be able to remove themselves safely from their domestic violence situation. I tell my story because oftentimes we find this overarching domestic violence, right? We know about the wheel, the honeymoon, things get tense, the abuse starts, the apology, the honeymoon, and it goes around. Or we hear about the different types of domestic violence, physical, verbal, spiritual, mental, emotional, financial, all of those. We hear about those, but do we hear about the intimate stories? Do we hear about the intimate stories about how someone like myself, who was abused when no one was around, or close to death when no one was around? And when other people were around, it was skipping through the tulips, happy go lucky, because this is what abusers do. They are manipulative. And they do the things that they want to do behind the scenes to hold on to that power and control. And the one who is being abused sometimes has to sit silently. And then they grapple and have this internal battle. What am I going to do to get out of this relationship and to survive? And another way the system does not work for us is that the victim or the person being abused, or the person who is experiencing the abuse, the system forces them to bear the brunt of getting out. How do we not hold the abuser and the perpetrator accountable? It's hard to get a temporary order of protection, and that piece of paper is not going to save you in the heat of the moment. Or it's hard to get a permanent order of protection, which is an oxymoron because it's not really permanent, because it only lasts a certain amount of time. Or the person, would have to move, find another place, sometimes leave their children, leave their friends, go into a shelter. You don't know what these shelters are going to offer you. So sometimes people take and say, you know what, I know what I'm getting here, and at least I have a clean roof over my head. I may have food, because that may be a way of punishment, like go to your room, you don't eat tonight, and those things. But they know what their situation or circumstance is. So that silent battle is a little different. And how do we get to a place where it no longer has to be silent, and we begin to offer some well-rounded, holistic help for those to get out of their situation without them having to lose everything to hold on to their lives? That's a hard choice to make, a very hard choice, a very scary choice, because who's to say that it's going to work? I remember when I had a recurrence I had surgery, I had chemo, and then I was supposed to have radiation. Went for radiation mapping, and they were like, "Oh, you have too much cancer." My doctor said, my current team of doctors at that time said, "Oh, well, we can go back in and do surgery. It might further debilitate your left side, but we can do surgery and then we can put you on this oral medication." That may not work. And then someone else said, "Well, why don't you go see about a clinical trial?" And Black women and clinical trials, the fear, the concern, what the medical system has done to us and to our beloveds, from Henrietta Lacks to the Tuskegee experiment to J. Marion Sims, and the list goes on and on and on. And you want me to go to a clinical trial when the medical system is racist? So even those, I had to take a chance to see what would work. And by the grace of God, the clinical trial worked until it didn't. And then the maintenance medicine that I'm on, it's working. I'm here. But who's to say that in a domestic violence situation, when something increases and gets worse, that when they leave, it's going to get better? Or when they leave, it's an automatic safety card. It doesn't work that way. So each individual has a different story, just like in breast cancer, each individual has a different story. I have HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer. Had a dear friend, Amy, HER2 positive metastatic breast cancer, was diagnosed a little earlier than me. And once we met, we journeyed together. I got into the clinical trial. She did not, and she ended up dying. Those are things that we are dealing with when we're talking about silent battles. And how do we then ring the alarm and make a resounding noise together to begin to right the wrongs that are happening to us, particularly as Black women, whether it's in the medical field or if it's in domestic violence? By the way, our indigenous Native Americans are number one when it comes to domestic violence. Black beloveds, Black women are right behind. It's not an oppression Olympics. I name those two things because we are the two most oppressed and marginalized groups since the inception of this country. They killed, stole, enslaved our indigenous people, and then they stole us and brought us here for ill reasons. So from day one. So how do we then respond to systems that are supposed to work for us? We have all these wonderful organizations. We have breast cancer organizations. We have domestic violence organizations. I do a training every quarter about domestic violence and faith institutions. And we do all this stuff. But what's really good? What are we really doing to help our beloveds, our Black and brown beloveds, our Black women? What's really good when we are debating if we're going to go vote? What's really good if we're ready to vote for someone that clearly doesn't give two about you, about me? Yeah, sometimes, we're voting for the lesser of two evils, blah, blah, blah. The whole system is jacked up. And we wait until election time to talk about it. We wait until Breast Cancer Awareness Month to talk about it. As a matter of fact, we don't even talk about domestic violence. When I did the hashtag on one of my posts, you know how it tells you how many people have used that hashtag? I think Breast Cancer Awareness Month was like, say, 19 million. I'm throwing out a number. Domestic violence awareness was like 900,000. We are not talking about it. This is a silent battle that we must bring to the forefront where it is silent no more. Our silence will kill us. It will kill us. And we need to we have an opportunity to take on the mindset of Lucille Clifton, the late poet that said, won't you come celebrate with me, for every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. Why has it failed? Because I'm resilient. Why has it failed? Because I speak up and I speak out for my people. Why has it failed? Because my battle is no longer private. I am publicly fighting this battle to fight for my life and for the lives of my beloveds. Why has it failed? Because we came together as community to know the power that we have, the financial power that we have, our brilliant acumen, our mere divine beings, all of that power is the reason why it has failed every time someone has tried to kill us collectively. I know people have died. I know people have suffered. I know that people have succumbed to the ills of this society. I know that people are dying right now as we speak in the midst of this war. And what are we going to do to make sure that their deaths are not in vain? We can't do this silently anymore. If we do it collective, then those who are in a domestic violence situation knows that they have a village behind them that's going to help save them. If we do this with breast cancer, you might be silent, secretive, private, but come holla at me. I'll tell the story. I'll tell the story. If it's going to help community live and not die, I'm going to tell it. Hey, Pastor T. Yes, it is killing us. Dr. Tad, you are spot on. So listen, vote. Continue to lift up not only Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but domestic violence awareness. And it is so timely that Pastor T, Big T, just came on, because he was one of the few pastors, him and Pastor Holmes, who would actually do something and preach from the pulpit about domestic violence. Black men preaching about domestic violence, having vigils, doing things to bring awareness. This is what it looks like to no longer be silent and to bring this to the forefront so we are saving lives. Pastor T, thank you. I love you so much. Thank you for joining. Thank you for doing all that you do for domestic violence awareness. Hey, Sister Marie, you got on. Yay. That's my big sister, y'all. I got two sisters on the line. So listen, vote. Let's talk about breast cancer awareness. Let's talk about domestic violence. Let's get these numbers down. Let us not be the most. This is not Oppression Olympics. We don't want that. That's not a gold medal for us to be the highest in all those areas. Absolutely not. We need to bring those numbers down. And as Reverend Tammy Denise, who is the president and co-founder of Carrie's Touch, she said, let us increase the 59% of breast cancer survivors versus end the 41% of Black women who die disproportionately to white women. I love that because it speaks power. It speaks positivity. It speaks and gives life to focus on those that are living so we can just keep adding to those that are living versus focusing on and just, honoring those, of course, who have died, but also reducing that number so we can shift them over to the 59, 60, 65, 70% that lived. Yeah. This is Tuesdays with Tawana. I am your host and your curator, Dr. Tad. I hope to see you on next Tuesday live at 2 o'clock right here on Facebook, or you can jump over to YouTube, and hopefully next week you can even jump on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining. Thank you for talking with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being in community and building community one womanist episode at a time. I love you dearly. I will talk with you next week. Blessings to all. Thank you.